Hello and welcome back to Breaking Bread with. Thank you so much guys for joining us again. We're so excited about this and our first episode is doing really well, so thank you for watching and thank you for engaging. We're talking about women in media and we met with Ingrid Jones, who is the executive director of Nikateko Media, and we had a fantastic interview. So please go and check that out before you carry on watching this. But thanks for coming and watching this too. And in this episode, I'm joined by Jonty Fischer. Hello, Jonty.
Hello, hello.
Very nice to have you, and thank you so much for agreeing.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
We have a very nice relationship with Old Friends Young Talent as Break Bread Group. We have collaborated on a client before, and we share, very mutual sort of systems or belief systems. I'd like to think, right? So I'm just going to be talking to Jonty about transformation, and this is going to be very interesting because when I got to the agency, we're at Old Friends Young Talent right now in Claremont, and when I got here, I had my wig on, and just for the transformation topic, I took it off, and now I've transformed. Magic, right? So we're going to talk about transformation in the industry. We're going to be talking about not just racial transformation, not just ageism, and definitely not just gender transformation, but all of those things and how it affects this industry. And there's been a lot of talk about transformation over the years. It's something that hasn't stopped. Lots of agencies are trying to do something about this, and Old Friends Young Talent is one of those agencies that I believe is trying to do something about it, or at least is saying they're doing something about it. So I thought, let me bring them on and let's talk to them and find out what are they doing about this transformation. So Jonty, I think let's first get to know you.
Yes.
Who are you? Who's Jonty?
I'm in Joburg with the agency up there as well, and a couple of our bigger clients up there. So, but that's pretty much me.
Yeah. And Jonty, what's your career background? Or rather, let's start with education.
Yes.
Where did you study? What did you study?
So I studied at the University of Cape Town. I did a Bachelor of Business Science, which is quite an unusual degree to have in the advertising industry.
Exactly. And I went to UCT and I studied a BA. So I'm just like, why are these business science people in our industry?
Exactly. So I mean, I think certainly in our degree it's obviously a very business heavy degree, and we were pretty much trained to go into a Unilever, Procter & Gamble, those types of things. And I was never really that interested in going the corporate route. And in my honours year, a friend of myself started a little agency while I was doing my thesis. And we kind of bumbled around on that, and then when I finished, we said, well, let's make a go of it. And we started with 2 people underneath the old Noble Calvert Pace in Gardens, and that's pretty much been my career, as building agencies from there. So that agency was called Traffic. We built that up over the period of about 10, 11 years, and then we rebuilt that from scratch in a bit of a new model with some really great mentors, and rebuilt that as Bletchley Park. My original partner left, and I was joined by Kelly Putter, who still remains a partner today. And then I suppose we were feeling that we were seeing that the economy was changing, and certainly that we felt that marketing budgets were going to be squeezed. And we were about 30 people at that stage, and we really felt that as that squeeze comes, that we were maybe caught in a bit of a trap of needing more scale.
And that is something that is actually, happening now.
Absolutely.
A lot of agencies now are having to think about
100%.
About, marketing budgets are being squeezed. Businesses are not going to be paying the same amount of money that they've been paying for the past couple of years. And how do we scale? How do we scale in this sort of economy?
And there's a real trap in that space, because I think what happens is a lot of clients either have a flight to quality, they want to go up, so they can't make it, they can't afford errors, that type of stuff, so then they don't want to be playing with small to medium-sized agencies, they want to go up, and they'd rather be a small fish in a big pond there. Otherwise, they tend to go down and look for cheaper options that are more kind of one-man band, freelance options. And I think that was what we were worried about. This is kind of 2014 around there. And at the same time, we were having discussions with OFYT, just because there was some mutual kind of friends and kinship there, and we were pretty much equal size. Both had the same concerns around needing scale, and we had a very similar philosophies about the way that we ran our businesses and the way that our kind of view on the world and view on the industry. So we had a long engagement of discussions, and we ended up merging the two agencies in 2015. And it was also a bit of a succession plan for the older guys there at the agency. We've had three, 4 great years with OFYT, and long may it continue.
That's fantastic. Now tell me, where did the name, I mean, I know you came from,
yes,
what was the name of your
Bletchley
agency?
Park.
Bletchley Park. Where does this name come from, and what does it signify?
Yeah, so the idea of Old Friends Young Talent really was to pull together very wise heads of the industry that have really been at the top of the game, both locally and internationally. And certainly the original partners of the agency were that. They were at big European jobs and South African jobs as well. The idea was to combine that kind of wise talent with young talent that was brought in primarily from previously disadvantaged backgrounds as a way to get new voices into the industry, and also I think the one of the basics of the lack of transformation traditionally in the industry has been that the barriers to entry are incredibly high. So if you're looking at an ad school in South Africa, it's private tuition, and it's expensive private tuition. So the difficulty was, if you were somebody living in a costly environment and you were really interested in the creative arts and particularly in advertising, it's really difficult to break into that industry. And that was really the model, was to try and say, well, if we want to bring voices in, but also have our own voices in an agency, we need to have this combination of wise talent and young talent that was born from in different and had a different lived experience than most of the industry as it was. So that the name Old Friends Young Talent was really about the combination of those two things together.
Yeah. Okay. So the name in itself obviously speaks transformation.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Old Friends Young Talent, wise talent and young talent, which is great. But then the one thing that young talent, and specifically young talent from disadvantaged backgrounds, and I'll say black, specifically young talent from black backgrounds, come into this environment, and then there's a culture clash.
Yes.
How have you guys been able to navigate that?
It's a great question, because it's so important. I think it's been something that we've really worked hard at understanding, how to create an environment that is incredibly open, number one, it is incredibly nurturing, number two, but also is really understanding of how we've got to break down not the obvious barriers, but the very nuanced barriers that happen. And that might just be language. It might be the way that we talk about advertising and marketing, and how we break all of that down. So there's a number of things that we've done. The first of all is we're very specific about the kind of people that we hire, and what type of EQ they have and what type of worldview they have. And that's incredibly important to us, about the environment that we create that is supportive of the young talent that comes into the industry. Number two, one of the things that we did was to all of our senior talent and primarily our white senior talent have all been for quite a while through Xhosa courses and understanding conversational Xhosa, and not for the reasons that you may think.
Wait, before you carry on, I have to try and teach you how to say Xhosa correctly.
Xhosa.
There you go.
There we go. Sorry, it's when it slips off like that. It's terrible.
Carry on.
But I think a lot of it is actually about more of the neuroscience of breaking down perceived barriers. So a lot of that was actually less about the learning of the language and more about flipping the script of who was the wise person and who was the young talent. And what it does, we talk a lot about reverse mentorship and how important that is with the older, more experienced talent that still requires a different point of view from this lived experience. So we look at it as a complete both-way mentorship. It's not a one-way mentorship that's like these old guys giving back. It's a reverse mentorship both ways, that we're both learning and we're both getting a lot out of it. And so a lot of that point was actually about putting the young talent in a teaching position for a lot of us as older English-speaking white people, and a way to break those barriers down.
And I think that way of thinking about it sort of negates the argument of like white savior.
Exactly the point. And I think that is something that we're so conscious of in creating a level of inequality, because in our industry, we firmly believe, as most agencies do, in theory, that ideas can come from anywhere, but people have got to have the confidence to put their voice out there, and that's the thing that we find with a lot of the young talent is, because the environment is so different, because there's such a culture clash, it's the first time for many of these young people that they're in an office environment which has a whole lot of, if you go into any normal office environment, it has its own rules and its own systems and structures and ways that are almost unsaid. And it takes a long time to get that confidence and to get that voice out. So we actively look for ways that we can break those barriers down and that we can ensure that people are putting their voices out there, because if we can use all of those voices, we build great ideas that are South African ideas and that feel uniquely South African and uniquely resonant in this market. So, I think the point of the White Savior is so important, because it's something that we obviously are completely against and completely don't believe in, but you've got to be active in demonstrating and putting that out. And I think that calling it out is important, because I think it is an active role to do that.
It definitely is. Like in any sort of transformation discussion,
exactly,
you have to be actively trying to change things.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they're not going to change. Otherwise, policy is policy. It's a piece of paper.
And that's where I think a lot of the laziness comes in. Of where if you are just box ticking in any environment, but I think in a creative environment, the microscope on that is so much higher. That if you're just box ticking, it's so easy to write things off. We tried and it didn't work. It's like but have you really tried? Because you've got to actually go much further in ensuring that your environment is conducive to get every voice on the table, and that's the most important thing for us.
Definitely. Now, what do you say to critics that say the industry isn't doing enough? I mean, there's people like yourself over at YT. You're the only one I can think of.
No, but I think
I was supposed to say, there's sorry.
I think there are a lot of agencies that I think are trying to do it, because I think some of them have been pushed and forced to do it, and those generally are industries or agencies rather, where if you speak to people in there, it's blatantly obvious that they are just trying to do it, and they're covering numbers and they're just trying to fulfill. I think because the magnitude of the importance of it is so high, and it's so I think when there's a lot of media around this industry that have been really strong in advocating for transformation, and I think clients have been much stronger, more than ever, in advocating for transformation. And when we say transformation, we're talking about authentic, real transformation, as opposed to inauthentic box ticking and making up the numbers. I think there's two challenges. I think for me, when we're talking in a South African environment where the majority of our consumers in this country, of the brands that we're all marketing and working on, are not necessarily in high income environments, I think there's two sides to transformation that we're really interested in, and I think the first wave is certainly racial transformation and making sure that there are black voices and non-white voices across the board, but there's the unsaid part of transformation for me, which is still critically important with our socio-economic strata, is that socio-economic transformation is not just having black talent that might come from a very elite school,
that is such an amazing point.
But having talent that we can bring in that comes from all walks of life in South Africa, because
it's so easy. In my discussion with Ingrid Jones last week, we were talking about that, where we're saying transformation. I mean, we went into sort of racial transformation. We were supposed to be talking about gender, but then we spoke about the assimilation of black talent within industry. So you go and you hire this black person who went to, say, your St. John's and was able to afford a AAA or whatever advertising school, and their experience, their lived experience, and economic lived experience is very different to someone who never had any of those opportunities. And disadvantage is like a spectrum. You can't just be like, all black people are disadvantaged the same. We're disadvantaged in different ways. And that's fantastic that you guys recognize that, firstly. And then secondly, actively try and bring people in that are not of the same economic standing.
Exactly. I mean, we feel that it's as much as an imperative as the racial transformation is the racial and socio-economic transformation, because I think that's also, if we look at, every business as a microcosm is an employer of people, and if we want to create change in this country and create positive change, we all need to be focused on employment. It's the biggest thing that's facing this country, and I think the ability for us to impact that absolutely through the line as opposed to at a horizontal level is incredibly important. So that's something we heavily focused on.
Okay, cool. Now let's talk about your clients.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll specifically talk about Kia.
Yes.
Massive client. Congratulations. How long have you guys had Kia?
It was one of the anchor clients right near the beginning, actually. So it predates our merger, but it's been over 5 years now.
Yeah. And I've seen a couple of ads that come from you guys, obviously because it's your client, and I've seen what you would call diversity of voices or diversity of cultures. There are 2 ads where it's for the same car, so Kia Sportage, I think.
Yes.
And there's 2 ads that I've specifically seen, where one ad is a white family, and I think they go in a Halloween.
Yes, or dress up.
Dress up situation, and the idea that the car can give you space, right? Where you can dress up and you can do whatever. And then that next one is a black family, and it's around, I think, just making your life easier. So it's you forgot your car keys, or the children haven't done this, and it's all about like how the Kia makes your life a little bit easier. And I can see the deliberate sort of decision of making 2 very stark different ads in terms of diversity, in terms of transformation. Black family, white family, right? What was the thought process there? Was that deliberate? Is it, and do you think that the inclusion of black voices within your agency has made that easier?
Yeah, okay. So I think it wasn't as deliberate as it may seem, actually. I'd love to say that it was, but effectively those were features and benefits ads, quite standard, trying to call out specific things. It was later in the model journey, it wasn't a launch campaign, so we were trying to call out different ones. We actually had, they were going to be digital film, and we actually had 5. And obviously, Sportage being very much a family car, we're not going to do it inauthentically and have like a smarty box of like a black mom and a white dad. So we had a whole lot of families, but we ended up taking 2 of them onto TV, and it just happened to be those 2. But certainly, I think the teams that work across all of our brands have diversity in them, and I think that I think those ads are maybe lesser examples as more some of the work that we've done, say on Soweto Gold, on the beer brand, that are, those ads really are quite standard ads around features and benefits, and probably didn't leverage the need for diversity internally into the finished product. I think there's some other ones that we've got, I know that I've just shown you now, but some other ones that we've got that are coming out now for Kia, specifically the K2 one, which are very much products of the diversity in here, and talk into cultural expression, and even there's one that is going to be coming out very soon, which is actually about cultural clashing between different cultures altogether, which is fantastic. And I think that all stems from the insights and diversity of the lived experience of the guys in here. I think Soweto Gold, as an example, is something that allows us to leverage all sorts of various cultures and Kasi cultures in South Africa, and that's been, for me, something that I've worked on together with our team here. I think has been some of the most exciting work that we've done, because it just feels so rich in exactly why we created this shop like this in the first place, and what we're able to do. So we're talking about 9 different campaigns and all sorts of different vernacular languages, and all based off like real Kasi human truth. I think that's beautiful, because I'm not going to be the one to do that. I'm just going to help guide and build and all those and challenge. But it's all the work of the people that are in this agency, and that's fantastic.
And so, Jonty, the old friends, young talent, right? The old and the young, obviously then leads on to the discussion of ageism in the industry. And the fact that you guys are old farts that know nothing about what you're doing, and we know all the things. Why are you doing it? Why are these old people wanting to create ads? What is your response to that? What is your response as Orowaiti to ageism?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating question. I mean, I'm 41, which seems so old, but it's probably not that old in the bigger picture of things. But I think it fascinates me that as an industry, and this is a global issue and a global problem, but as an industry, any other industry in the world respects experience and respects knowledge so much. And for some reason advertising seems to throw that knowledge and experience out the door, and it's crazy. I mean, we're literally the only industry in the world that does it. If you think about any other corporate environments where you're generally people that are older, wiser, more experienced are valued much higher than people who are entering.
Do you think though that has to do with the fact that technology and thinking is changing so drastically in our agency?
Absolutely. And I think the point is that discussion should never be binary. It's never a case of, well, you need old people or you need young people. It's that you need both. You've got to have that combination of that experience, that wisdom, that understanding of problems and the insight that comes along with that to be able to provide guardrails for the younger thinking and the idealism of younger thinking, absolutely, and then the knowledge of new ways of consuming content, of new ways of consuming media, new ways of consuming brands and what's in there. And I think the combination of those two things is what's powerful, as opposed to saying it must be either one or the other.
Yeah, that's very interesting for me because I have a different sort of perspective, and I've always had that perspective. But when you say that, I'm like, okay, maybe. I've always been like, young people, yay! Like, let's get young people in there. I think they think different, and the fact that even solutions that older generation might have now changed because of how different times are. But I hear what you're saying.
And I think the key caveat to it, though, is it has to have the removal of ego. Because the old people have got to be listening to the young people and not thinking that they know better. And that's the critical difference, is that it doesn't work.
It's what you were saying, there's a term that you used. I think you said, whether it's like
the reverse mentoring.
And that term, that's what's most important. And the removal of ego is very important.
Absolutely, it's critical. It doesn't work without it.
And both ways, even with young people, who think they know everything, it's the removal of ego there, to be like, you don't know everything, you don't know how to, you don't know how to engage specifically, let's say, with certain stakeholders, because you don't have those relationships, or you don't have the know-how, or you're going to go in too fast and you're not going to understand the nuances of how to handle that specific client, let's say, in our industry.
Exactly.
So that's a very good point. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. It was great chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you. This is a fantastic conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be having more of these sorts of conversations. And just carry on the conversation in the comment section below. Ask us any questions. I've got access to this man, so if you have a question for him, just like post it in the comment section below, and I'll just email it through to him, and he will, let me know if he's got any answers. So thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about it. Open it in the office, play it loud so everybody can hear, and watch some more of us. And we love you guys so much for supporting this, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you, bye.